Now you're welcome along. We are talking GAA on this sunny Thursday morning, and there's lots going on. Happy to say here in studio, Martin Breheny is with us. Martin, hello. You're very welcome.
Hello, Joe.
Colin Keys as well. Hello.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
And Sarah Donovan on the line. Hi, Sarah.
How are you?
So a week is a long time in politics. Just ask the Camogie Association. For fear of the continued ire of everyone and appearances before Oireachtas and everything else, they have moved to appease the swell of criticism. Now, initially, earlier in the week, this is on the back, obviously, as everyone knows, of Dublin and Kilkenny in the Leinster semi-final, being told game is abandoned unless you wear skorts. Initially, they had said, well, look, even though we're not meant to vote on this again after last year's vote until 2027, we will concede that we will vote next year. And obviously, that was not really going to fly. Cork and Waterford in the Munster final said, well, look, we're wearing shorts, abandon the game if you want. And so news this morning of a special Congress on May 22nd, a Thursday, and assuming, and I am assuming, the result goes the way the players want, then from Saturday, May 24th, they can very much officially wear skorts or shorts. So that's the news this morning. Like there are, there's a fudging ongoing already, like at club level. Carl O'Brien, the Dublin Camogie chairman, had made it clear that games were not to be abandoned on the basis of shorts being worn instead of skorts. So you're going to have an Irish solution to a sticky situation. So, Camogie Association, May 22nd, special Congress. They had no choice here, Sarah. This thing was getting away from them.
When you end up in prime time on a Tuesday evening after a segment about Gaza, you understand how much trouble you're in terms of the public interest in this piece. And realistically, although a date has been set for this special Congress, there's actually a massive amount of work to do now by the players and the clubs in the next 2 weeks to mandate their county boards to change their minds, because 13 months ago, they voted against choice. So unfortunately, this is the start line this morning. And for the next 2 weeks, it's on the clubs to impress upon their individual county boards that they want choice. Because if that work isn't done, there will be another vote no, unbelievably. And potentially there could be a second no vote.
It is quite difficult to get somebody on the record. Take these 150 representatives who went to Congress, for instance, last year. 64% of them voted against replacing skorts entirely. 55% of them voted against giving a choice, as in you can still wear your skort or your short. It's very hard to get any of them on the record to explain why they're voting that way. What's the strongest argument that you've heard, the most valid argument for keeping the skort?
Tradition is their argument. Differentiation from the LGFA, which is quite laughable when you consider the hurley in my hand and the helmet on my head, should be enough of a differentiation. And a sense that this is the way it's always been. And there is a sense aesthetically from those in Ord Corla and those of an older demographic that it looks better than the short. But body comportment dictates that that's not, I suppose, the case, in the sense that the game has moved on and it's moving so quickly. And actually, Carl O'Brien made a great point last night when he was speaking about photographers now taking photographs of Camogie players. 50 to 60% of those photos can't be used because the angle that they catch the skort at is not appropriate. And that is just one element that has evolved because of the progress in terms of promoting the game.
Okay. Because it was interesting. The closest I've got to somebody making the argument as well as you have there is Rena Buckley. She was talking to Sinead O'Carroll on the 42 FM podcast, and maybe she's a kind of similar perspective to others her age, but she was saying, for me personally, I don't think my journey with Camogie would be too dissimilar to people in my vintage. When I started playing Camogie, I hated skorts. But she was saying back then they were like skirts, and she was saying you didn't even have your own one, that like the kit person had come in, opened the bag, and she said like you were almost laughing because there was a fight for the skirt. And then you wouldn't get one that would fit you, and you'd be using a safety pin going out on a pitch to try and keep the thing on. And so she was saying, then along came the famous skorts. The original ones weren't amazing, but it was a massive step forward. And then she talked about the ones now, and she said they were much better. You could get, you buy your own skorts, you could get them to fit well, you have spare ones. She said, personally, I actually really like the modern skort. I find it comfortable. I like the fit of it. I like the look of it. So I was surprised that the players took such a strong stance on something that doesn't bother me in the slightest, to be honest. But I understand the argument, the background to it. People are obviously feeling like this is a big issue and they took to their feet and they made a protest. I'd say they got much more coverage than they expected. But look, I suppose for good or for bad, we're talking about Camogie. My personal experience with the skort in the last 10 years has been very positive. It has not even crossed my mind. If someone said to me to protest over the skort, I wouldn't even give it the time of day to do that because it's just not an issue for me compared to all the other things, which are big issues. That said, I saw the results of the poll, same as anyone else. And when I saw the results of the GPA survey, I began to think, okay, I'm clearly disconnected with the adult intercounty playing portion now.
I was Rena's teammate for a good number of years.
Okay. So you fought over skirts
in the dressing room,
yeah,
looking to avoid the size 16 when, it was just going to fall off me as a 13-year-old playing senior. My body did not fit into that skirt, and I had 3 or 4 safety pins the same way as Rena did. Rena's like Dennis Irwin. I think it's the best kind of description of Rena. She is so measured and so articulate. And Rena's right. Rena never had an issue with the skirt. And I wouldn't want to take Rena's choice of wearing a skirt away from her. So this motion allows both Roy Keane and Dennis Irwin to be happy in this instance,
yeah.
and they both get to wear what they want and both get to perform in the way that they want. And I really enjoyed Rena's discussion with Sinead last night because I remember being in that dressing room as a 13-year-old trying to avoid having the skirt hanging off me and asking for 4 safety pins to pin it around me at that point. Can I just say I would be much more comfortable in the larger skirt now? So I would appreciate coming back into the dressing room and fighting for the larger skirt now.
Yeah, you and me both. So I guess this is such a non-issue. Like like it's just so obvious. The players, every survey I see is 80% want to wear shorts. The disconnect between the 150 representatives who went in and voted last year at Congress. What's going on there? Who are these people? Explain this to me. Why when it's just such a, to me, non-issue, shorts fine, the players wanted fine. I don't understand the vote last year and why they might be liable to vote again against it in a couple of weeks' time.
Joe, these delegates have been part of my sporting life for 30 years. They are incredible volunteers who stand at the gate every Sunday to take the money, to run the games, to ensure the pitches are up to standard, to ensure the competitions progress, to ensure the referees are on the pitch. They are incredible volunteers and have been incredible volunteers for 30 years of my life. But the faces at the gate haven't changed. There are no new faces going to the gate to help those volunteers. It might be time. It might be where they are in their family lives, but those delegates' faces at the gate haven't changed. And last Sunday, I rang our club delegate, Bernard Ahern, to get his opinion because he had been at the county board meeting in advance of last year's Congress. We were asked at that point as a club to discuss the motion, not to give a mandate to our delegate or to give a mandate to the county board for change. We were asked to discuss it and come back with our opinion as to whether we wanted choice. As a club, we wanted choice, and Bernard brought that decision to the county board. And he explained to me that he was in the minority that evening. There were other delegates who had a different opinion, and the county board had their opinion. The county board, because of the number of clubs in Cork, any county over 30 clubs has 6 delegate votes. They have 6 delegate votes. And it was very evident on the night that those county board delegates who were going to be at Congress would be voting en masse against choice. So in the statement today where the Camogie Association says that the delegates represent the individuals around the country, it was evident that they did not represent our club choice at annual Congress because we had voted for choice and they had voted no.
Yeah.
So that is where the disconnect is. The democracy piece is not being met if our choice as a club who pays our fees, who has given our opinion, is not being captured in the vote of the Cork delegation.
Yeah. What's your sense of May 22nd? Surely given the controversy, surely given the figure of 80% of players expressing an opinion, these delegates will change their vote, no?
No.
Not so sure?
Based on my experience of the Camogie Association, and this is not intended to be negative, they are incredibly versed on the rules, and it will require a mandate from each club to the individual county board to change their vote. And this may require in the next number of weeks an EGM of the county board in each county to show that each club wants choice. If they do,
Yeah.
it may be that there will be a groundswell in opposition when the clubs are asked to vote at an EGM or to bring an EGM to their county board, but it has to be mandated because there will be a workaround if the clubs don't request an EGM of their county board.
Yeah. But then, so say that's quite a lot of work to do in 2 weeks. You know, that's the point you were making here. There's going to have to be a lot done between now and May 22nd. So
it only requires 5 days' notice.
Yeah. Okay. So say hearts and minds aren't changed and it's rejected again. All hell's going to break loose.
It would probably be a financial hit. That would be the next issue for the Camogie Association if they decide to vote against choice. I can't say that they will vote for choice. I'm afraid that they may not.
Right.
Whisperings this morning already that different counties have already expressed that while some have changed, some will not.
Okay. And there's potential.
Despite not having spoken to their county board or their clubs.
Okay. So there's a real degree then of no one's going to tell us what to do as well.
Exactly. Now, you've already spoken about the fact that it is incredibly hard to get anyone on the record.
Yeah.
With regard to these decisions, and trust me when I tell you, when the county board or the Camogie Association are looking for you, they can find you. And after 2 yellow cards, I found myself in Croke Park one particular Monday evening before a committee of 3, and I thought I wouldn't be found. So it's in the reverse. They're very difficult to find when they need to speak on something. And if you're looking at the Ard Corla and the list of people on the Ard Corla right now, people like Tracy Kennedy, who is the GA representative, I hope to speak to Tracy Kennedy this week, or I hope someone has an opportunity to speak to Tracy Kennedy this week, because I suppose Tracy is the GA representative at Ard Corla, and it would be lovely to get her perspective coming from a bigger organisation now and seeing the situation, and perhaps somebody like Tracy would have an opportunity to speak to the Ard Corla in the next couple of days and say, this groundswell of support for choice means that you have no other option.
Yeah. Just one last one. I get a thought from the lads then before we move on. One, it's not reservation's too strong a word. I sort of I could understand the view of somebody who would say, well, this business of choice actually is going to look very messy on the pitch, in that, it just looks a bit amateur to have different players wearing different equipment on the pitch. Let's just go all or nothing. Let's just go shorts if that's what the majority want. I could understand that sentiment. Do you have any reservation with looking at a pitch and seeing 8 players wearing skorts, 7 wearing shorts, and it just looks a little bit amateur?
I would say that having discussions with Tess Howard yesterday was probably the most enlightening experience of my Camogie career. Tess is an MBE. She campaigned for choice to wear shorts at the Olympics. They have designed the shorts and the skorts so that you cannot tell when the team is sitting or standing whether either player is wearing shorts or skorts.
Right, okay.
And she said that following their choice and I suppose the collaboration with their federation, France have followed suit, Holland have followed suit, English netball, English cricket. And she actually offered yesterday for clubs in Ireland to join the pledge to allow for choice on their own steam without their county board's permission.
Mm.
She's opened a pledge on their website to allow for individual clubs to join. And it just, in Dublin, when there was obviously this groundswell of support a couple of nights ago, and the go-ahead championships and leagues allowed players to play in shorts, those clubs obviously wanted to show their support, and this is another way of showing their support. They can join this pledge to join this inclusive charter and get things moving.
Okay. Colin, it's kind of it just seems so odd that we're talking about this, but here we are. They've made a mess of the thing.
I'm surprised to hear Sarah say that there is doubt as to whether the special Congress will obviously be pro-choice. I would have expected when you hold something up to the light, as this was held up to the light over the weekend, with Dublin and Kilkenny's actions, and since then Dublin County Board and Cork and Waterford now, when you hold something up to the light and you get that public reaction, you know there is no choice here. You must provide choice. As regards the layers of voting, I recall this probably has a similarity to Rule 42 20 years ago with the GA, when there was meetings took place in clubs and delegates were mandated the whole way up to vote for this, and I'd expect something similar will happen here, and the result will be, to be honest, I think it sounds like an easy fix without knowing obviously the great. It sounds like a very easy fix over something like this. I would have thought, looking in, just allow the choice. I take the aesthetic. You mentioned it as amateur, but I don't think that would be a factor at all.
No, well, it shouldn't be really. I'm sort of struggling here to play devil's advocate for people who won't actually come on and talk about it themselves. I would have thought it would be a formality as well, Martin, until Sarah enlightened us into the realities of how these things are done. So I'm like, it's going to be, they'll be back in prime time, put it that way.
Well, it will be. I think it will be a formality too, because why bother with a special Congress if you're not going to make a change? I mean,
so you think it will go through?
Oh, I think it will go through. Yeah. But I think. I mean, the war is over. I mean, there's no point. It's how you settle the aftermath or whatever. That's the only matter left, really, I think. Yeah. But what I don't quite understand here is the timing of all of this. Like this was the Congress 2 years ago.
Last year,
sorry, 2024. Yeah, but even if last year wasn't the time, I mean, maybe players didn't want to take this on last year, coming into the championship or whatever. But during the close season would seem an obvious time to say, right, we want this change now, and you will have no season. There won't be the close season. We're in the close season, but you won't have an open season if this isn't changed. And there would be plenty of time to work it through at that time. And it would be better for the players, because it's not good for the players now. I mean, Munster final on this week. They're not. All of this is overshadowing. They don't know whether it will take place or not. There was talk of them playing a game somewhere else. A friendly game between them. And the players are losing out on this. The timing of it just has me baffled. I have to say, why this wasn't. If the players were so overwhelming, and obviously they were with the 83% vote, that this didn't happen either last year, at the end of last season, for instance. Say, right, that's the last season we're having this. 2 or 3 months, a close season. You won't have a new season without changing this. But because, as I said, the players ultimately they've made their case. They're going to win the battle, but they've lost out as well. A lot of players in terms of they should be talking about the championship, working at the championship, and enjoying it. Instead, this row was on and they're on prime time for the wrong reason.
Martin, just to explain to you, in November, discussions started with Tess Howard of Great Britain Hockey with the GPA in terms of building the research paper for the Camogie Association. So this was started in the close.
But there could have been. But the ultimatum could have gone down then and said, you won't have a season, research paper or not. If 83% came out and voted, then say, sorry folks, you won't have a new season. I'm just saying, from the players' perspective, it would have been better to make a stand then, perhaps, than now. I'm saying purely from the players' perspective.
I don't know if there would have been an opportunity to make a stand, and I don't think, unless the escalation process had happened on the field last week, Martin, the way it had between Kilkenny and Dublin, we wouldn't have gotten the traction that we had gotten.
But if you said that if you came out and said there won't be a season, a unanimity in this, you won't have a new Camogie season.
Martin, I don't believe there would have been the same impact. That's just from personal experience. I think holding a gun to their head, which is essentially what they've done last weekend and this weekend,
it would have been
the only way.
It would have been a gun, I would have thought, if they said you won't have a season. But that's an aside. I just said the players are losing a little bit. I think certainly the Munster final this week. It's very difficult for Cork and Waterford to concentrate.
I wonder will Cork and Waterford press ahead now that they know that there's a May 22nd special Congress. I wonder will the Cork and Waterford players press ahead, because that could be a factor in shaping the minds of some of the delegates, as you have described them there, Sarah, that if Waterford and Cork go ahead, even though there's expectation, obviously not your expectation, but broad expectation, I would think that this would be changed. And I think the public mood and the reaction, as I said, hold a matter like this up to the light for the entire public.
Well, if you look at, do you remember the Liam Miller controversy some years ago about the Páirc Uí Chaoimh? And strictly speaking, the GA rules didn't allow it. But the argument, it was changed virtually, not overnight, but over the space of a few weeks.
Yeah.
For the simple reason, it was that it wasn't in line with the GA aims or ideals or whatever. But the controversy wasn't running with the GAs. I mean, it was doing them damage, and they did change it very, very quickly. A lot of people who had voted, they changed their minds very quickly when it was pretty clear that the public were all against them.
Sarah, what's your sense of what the players are doing in the Munster final?
They will wear shorts.
Okay, and game won't be abandoned, or we don't know.
So it will be up to the referee to decide if he will allow the game to go ahead and put it into his report. But I cannot see the players backing down from wearing shorts. That was a significant statement yesterday from both teams, and they said, we will wear shorts, we will have our choice.
Yeah. If the game's abandoned, that's farce, isn't it?
It's incredibly disappointing, and I spoke to Niamh Rockett yesterday. She is a brilliant advocate for Waterford Camogie, and she explained to me that only twice in the last 10 years have they had an opportunity to win silverware. And Cork have won an abundance of those Munster medals. I feel like Waterford are taking a bigger risk here, and they're willing to do it because they feel incredibly strongly about this. And they won a helter-skelter game 2 weeks ago against Tip, 15 points to 14 to get into the Munster final. And they're willing to back down now and not play this game to ensure that their choice is heard.
Right. Okay, so we see what happens at the weekend. That could blow the whole thing up majorly if the game is abandoned.
It'll be live on Clubber, so you can tune in.
Clubber will have records. The site is about to crash.
I don't think the game will be abandoned.
It can't be abandoned.
I don't think it will be. I think there'll be some waiver, some derogation of rule to allow this to go ahead. I don't see that coming. The Camogie Association don't need that.
Yeah,
and I think any move to apply the rules as such, I think there'll be derogation found for that.
Yeah, go down in infamy. Meanwhile, I presume the Camogie Association, given the fact they brought this special Congress forward, Sarah, they'll be getting on to those representatives as well, letting it be known, Jarlath Burns style, what the hierarchy thinks. And well, I guess all eyes on the 22nd of May, and you're still not sure. That's the kind of point to sign off on.
Yeah, I think the opportunity here now is for the clubs and players individually. I can email the Secretary of the Cork County Board today and let them know that I want choice and I want my position to be heard at Congress. And the Cork County Board may be inundated with emails in the next 2 weeks, and that's no harm.
Yeah,
because they missed the point a couple of years ago. So
yeah, okay. Listen, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure. Cheers, Sarah.
Thanks all.